What you're about to hear are three true accounts of people who discovered their worst nightmare was living right next door. My name is Alex, and this story begins last summer when my wife, Jenna, and I finally purchased our first home. We were the first in our circle of friends to buy, and it felt like we'd made it. It was a modest two-story in a sleepy subdivision. The street was always peaceful, lined with identical lawns and chain-link fences. We felt an incredible sense of pride and excitement. That feeling was completely and utterly shattered. The neighbor on our right was a retired teacher. The folks across the street had already brought over cookies, but the house to our left, it was silent. For the first several days, we never saw a soul. The blinds were perpetually drawn. The place was tidy, but it had this cold, vacant aura, even though a beat-up sedan was always in the drive. The first sign something was off came on the third day. Jenna nudged me while we were unloading our car. "Don't look now," she whispered, "but someone's watching us from the window." I glanced over. In the front window, partly concealed by a heavy drape, stood a man. He was just staring. He didn't smile or wave. The moment our eyes met his, he vanished into the gloom of the house. Weird, but maybe he was just shy. Over the following week, we'd spot him again, always inside, always at a window. When I'd leave for my morning shift, I'd see his shape in the living room. Jenna saw him looking down from an upstairs window. He was a silent observer of our new life. The incident that really set us on edge happened late one night. I was heading to bed and passed our own bedroom window, which had a direct line of sight to his house. He was there, in his own second-floor window, not hiding at all this time. He stood rigid, facing our room directly. I stopped dead. The instant he saw me notice him, he stepped back into the shadows. I tried to joke about it with Jenna, calling him our neighborhood ghost, but the unease was already planted. The next morning, there was a knock. It was him. He introduced himself as Carl. He apologized for appearing creepy the night before, claiming he'd been adjusting a window blind. His smile was wide, practiced. It didn't reach his eyes. I accepted the apology, not wanting to start a feud. Inside, I told Jenna he gave me a strange vibe, but we agreed to let it go. A week later, the real trouble started. Jenna shook me awake. "Alex," she hissed, "there's someone in the yard." I crept to the back window. Sure enough, a dark figure was moving through our grass, pausing near the shed. I shouted, "Who's there?" The intruder didn't run. He walked briskly to our side gate, pulled it shut, and was gone. We didn't own anything worth stealing, so I chalked it up to a random trespasser. But 3 nights later, it happened again. This time, we both heard a distinct metallic scraping, like someone testing a lock. I looked out and saw the figure. I yelled that I was dialing 911. The person left, shutting the gate with the same deliberate force. But in the brief moonlight, the build and the gate, it was unmistakably Carl. The man next door was now walking through our private world in the dead of night. I marched straight to his house and pounded on the door. He answered almost instantly, still dressed. He grinned and launched into an explanation before I could speak. He said he'd been chasing off local teenagers who loved to hop fences and that they'd been using our yard. He kept smiling that hollow smile. His story was smooth, but his eyes were flat and cold. I knew he was lying. The next day, he invited us for dinner. We felt pressured to accept, hoping to ease the tension. We arrived that Friday. The air inside was thick and stale. Carl had clearly been drinking. He'd ordered pizza and made a pointed comment. "I figured you'd prefer this," with a smirk. The meal was a minefield of passive-aggressive remarks that grew steadily more direct. With each glass of wine, his mask slipped further. He began ranting about the neighborhood's history, how it was a certain kind of place, and that some people don't belong. His words were venomous, aimed squarely at us, an interracial couple. Then he admitted it. He confirmed he'd been the one in our yard. He wasn't even hiding it anymore. He finished by shouting that we weren't welcome.
We stood up, wordless, and practically fled to our house. We went to other neighbors the next morning. Their reactions were a chilling mix of shock and weary resignation. We learned Carl was a notorious drunk, abandoned by his family years prior. Our fear became a constant companion. Then, one night, we were jolted awake by a thunderous crash. A cinder block had been hurled through our living room window. Glass littered our couch and floor. We knew it was him. We had zero proof. The police filed a report, but could do nothing. We talked about installing security systems, about fighting back, but the psychological toll was too heavy. We were exhausted and terrified. Less than 2 months after moving into our dream home, we packed our boxes and left. We abandoned the place we'd worked so hard for. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed. I don't like the answer. All we could do was move forward. This next story takes us to a quiet cul-de-sac a few years back. My name is Leo, and I just moved in with my then-girlfriend, Mia. The couple to our right, Tom and Brenda, were the friendliest on the block. They brought us a homemade pie as a welcome gift. For the first month, everything was perfect. Then the shouting started. Late one Tuesday, we heard a furious argument erupt from their home. We saw Brenda storm out to her car and peel away. We assumed it was a marital spat. Every couple has them. But Brenda's car didn't return. After a few days, we noticed it was gone. A week passed, then 2. Tom was still around, but he'd become a ghost. He'd duck inside if he saw us, and when we did talk, his words tumbled out in a nervous rush. After 3 weeks, my curiosity overpowered my better judgment. Mia told me not to, but I had to ask. I went over and rang the bell. It took him forever to answer. When he did, he was drenched in sweat, breathing heavily. He wore a strained, unnatural smile. I asked after Brenda. He stammered that she'd gone to care for a sick relative out of state. It felt scripted. Then I asked why he was so sweaty. "Oh, just working out," he said. But I heard it then, a muffled, desperate cry from deep within the house, a woman's voice. "What was that?" I asked. His eyes went wide. "The TV," he blurted. "A movie. I forgot to pause it." He just said he was exercising. I backed away, said a quick bye, and hurried home. Mia and I called the police immediately for a welfare check. What happened next unfolded like a crime drama. Multiple squad cars and an ambulance descended on the street. Tom was led out in handcuffs. Brenda was carried out on a gurney. We later learned the horrific truth. Their relationship was violently abusive. Tom had been holding her captive in a basement we never knew existed. He'd sold her car to maintain the illusion she'd left. The scream I heard, he'd attacked her for making noise when I was at the door. She didn't survive. As officers put Tom in the car, he locked eyes with me and said, "This isn't over." He was going to prison for life, so I tried to shrug it off, but the trauma had rooted. A few nights later, I had a nightmare so vivid it felt real. I woke in the dark to see his silhouette at the foot of my bed. He repeated his threat and then lunged with a knife. I jolted awake for real, gasping. Mia slept soundly beside me. I never told her about that dream. How could you? We moved as soon as our lease was up. The memory of living beside a monster never fades. Our final story comes from a young woman named Sam. At 23, she rented one side of a weathered duplex in a bustling city. Her landlord mentioned the tenant on the other side was a quiet night shift worker. Her bedroom shared a wall with his. The first week was normal. Then the sounds began. Lying in bed, she'd hear a strange sing-song mumbling through the wall. A man's voice, pitched oddly high, talking to himself. She wrote it off to TV or a phone call. Then came the knocking. Not house-settling creaks, but distinct, deliberate tap-tap-taps on the shared wall, right by her pillow. It only happened at night. She'd lie frozen, heart hammering. One night, after a series of soft knocks, the voice came through clearly. It asked, "What are you doing in there?" Sam shot upright. This was intentional communication. She called her best friend in a panic, who came over to stay. For a few nights, there was silence. It felt even more unnerving. Then came the final night. Sam was asleep when a rapid drumming on the wall snapped her awake. Fed up and terrified, she screamed back, "Leave me alone!" And then a new voice answered. This one wasn't through the wall. It was deep, calm, and chillingly close from the darkness of her own room. It said, "Go to sleep." She didn't see anyone. She just launched herself from the bed, flew down the stairs, and burst out the front door into the street, screaming. A neighbor called the police. They found no one inside. Her door had been unlocked, but she couldn't remember touching it. The neighbor's side was silent, no answer. Sam broke her lease and moved that week. She'll never know if someone was truly in her room that night, or if her mind, strained by weeks of fear, conjured the voice. But the terror was absolute.
She later heard the other tenant vanished without a trace. These stories remind us that danger can wear a familiar face. It can be the person just on the other side of the fence or the other side of the wall. If you found these tales as chilling as we did, please like this video. It truly helps our channel, Winds of Thought, share more real stories with you. Stay observant and stay safe.